Hey there! Ready to dive into the power of now.
Sure am.
Eckhart Tolle's book has really struck a chord,
Right.
with people from all walks of life.
Mm.
And I see you've got your own well-worn copy to guide us,
I do.
along with those insightful excerpts you sent.
Right.
We've got a good map to navigate this terrain.
Yeah, it's intriguing how this book has found its way into the hands of such a diverse readership.
It really is.
It's resonated with people like Oprah,
Really?
Buddhist monks, psychotherapists, and even those facing, immense challenges have found solace in its pages.
Right.
There's a universality to Tolle's message.
Yeah.
That's undeniably compelling.
Absolutely. And to really grasp its depth, I think we should start with Tolle's personal journey.
Sure.
He went from experiencing debilitating anxiety and suicidal depression to a profound spiritual awakening.
Wow.
That's quite the transformation.
It's really something. It really makes you consider how a pivotal shift in perspective can completely reshape a life. Tolle, in his late 20s, was grappling with intense anxiety and what he describes as a profound discontent with the world.
Right.
He even reached a point where he woke one night, feeling like he couldn't even escape from himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That feeling of being trapped within your own mind sounds incredibly isolating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But here's where the narrative takes a fascinating turn.
Okay.
In that moment of despair, he experienced a profound shift.
Right.
He describes it as a sudden quieting of the mental noise, a deep inner stillness.
Right.
It wasn't a fleeting moment of relief either.
Wow.
This inner transformation stayed with him for 2 years,
Wow.
bringing a sense of peace and joy he'd never known.
Oh, wow.
And that experience was the catalyst for his journey as a spiritual teacher.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It sounds like he experienced a dismantling of his sense of self as he knew it.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
Tolle's experience directly informs the core message of his book.
Okay.
The idea that you are not your mind.
Right.
You are something more expansive.
Okay.
The awareness that observes the mind.
So instead of trying to silence our thoughts completely,
Yeah.
it's more about recognizing when the mind...
It's like an unruly child tries to take control.
Precisely.
Okay.
The mind, while a valuable tool, can become a source of suffering when it dictates our reality.
Right.
Tolle calls this incessant mental chatter the thinker, which creates a false sense of self and traps us in a cycle of past regrets and future worries.
And how do we break free from that cycle?
That's the central question, isn't it?
Right.
By cultivating, watching the thinker.
Watching the thinker.
Yeah. This involves observing your thoughts without getting swept away by their content, creating space for presence to emerge.
Okay, so creating a space for presence.
Exactly.
Okay. It's so easy to get caught in that loop of replaying past regrets or worrying about what's to come.
Yeah.
But if I'm hearing you right...
It's not about pretending those things don't exist.
Right.
But rather shifting our focus to the here and now.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that? Especially when life throws curveballs our way. Work deadlines, relationship struggles, you name it.
Yeah.
How can we just focus on the now when things feel chaotic?
That's where the power of this practice really shines.
Okay.
Tolle isn't suggesting we ignore our problems or responsibilities.
All right.
Instead, he argues that much of our suffering stems from our resistance to what is.
Okay.
We dwell on past mistakes, letting them color our present, or we get consumed with anxiety about the future, missing the opportunities unfolding right in front of us.
So it's more about changing our relationship to those thoughts.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to banish them altogether.
Exactly. Those problems might still be there.
Okay.
But it's our mental and emotional reaction to them that often causes the most suffering.
Okay.
Think about it. How often do we find ourselves spiraling into what-ifs or replaying past conversations in our heads?
Yeah.
It's like getting stuck on a mental hamster wheel.
Okay, so instead of getting swept away by that mental current, we aim to observe those thoughts without judgment.
Exactly.
Easier said than done sometimes.
It takes practice, for sure.
Right.
And it's not about achieving some kind of blissful state where our minds are blank slates.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we have a choice in how we respond to our thoughts and emotions.
Okay.
One of the tools Tolle offers is the practice of bringing awareness to simple, everyday activities.
Could you give me an example of what that might look like in practice?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Imagine you're washing the dishes.
Okay.
Instead of letting your mind race through your to-do list.
Right.
Or replaying an argument.
Yeah.
You focus solely on the task at hand.
Okay.
You feel the warmth of the water, the texture of the sponge, the scent of the dish soap.
It's like turning an ordinary chore into a mindfulness exercise.
Precisely.
Right.
And the more we practice bringing this mindful awareness into our daily routines, the more we strengthen our ability to access that state of presence, even amidst chaos.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that Tolle describes most problems as illusions of the mind. How so?
He argues that they primarily exist within the dimension of time, our ego. That sense of self that wants to keep us feeling separate and in control.
Right.
Uses psychological time, the past and the future, to perpetuate suffering.
Oh, okay.
We get caught in cycles of blame and regret,
right,
or anxiety and anticipation, losing sight of the present moment.
It's like that quote from the excerpt you shared.
Yeah.
You are here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold.
Right.
That is how important you are.
Yeah.
It really highlights how our fixation on the past or future can prevent us from being present to what is unfolding right now.
Exactly. When we release that grip on time, we align ourselves with the present moment, which is where life is actually happening.
That brings us to another aspect of Tolle's work that I found intriguing.
Yeah.
And a little daunting, to be honest. Yeah. His views on relationships, from what I gathered.
Yeah.
He suggests that most relationships are inherently dysfunctional.
He does make that bold statement, doesn't he?
He does.
And it's rooted in his belief that most of us enter relationships with a deep-seated need to find wholeness or completion in another person.
Okay.
We're looking for someone to fill a void within ourselves.
Right.
Which ultimately leads to attachment, clinging, and suffering.
So it's about shifting from a place of need to a place of
being. Yeah, remember, Tolle defines true love not as an emotion, but as a state of being.
Okay.
It's about connecting to the present moment.
Right.
And recognizing the divine essence within both ourselves and the other person, free from the distortions of the ego.
That makes me think about those tumultuous love-hate relationships Tolle talks about.
Yeah.
Where people swing between passionate highs and explosive arguments.
A classic example of ego-driven relationships.
Right.
It's a cycle fueled by that addictive clinging.
Right.
That need to get something from the other person to feel complete.
Right.
Rather than a genuine appreciation for who they are at their core.
That neediness can be so blinding. It's like you're wearing these distorted lenses that prevent you from seeing the other person clearly.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's why presence is so crucial in relationships.
Okay.
When we relate to our partners from a place of presence, we're no longer viewing them through the filter of past hurts or future expectations.
Yeah.
We encounter them with a renewed sense of clarity and authenticity.
It sounds like a radical act of love.
It is.
Showing up in a relationship with that level of presence.
It is.
But it begs the question.
Sure.
What about those messy, negative emotions that inevitably arise in any close relationship? How does Tolle suggest we navigate those?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Tolle doesn't advocate for suppressing or denying those emotions.
Okay.
Even the ones we tend to label as negative.
Right.
Like anger, jealousy, or resentment.
Okay.
Instead, he suggests we meet them with presence.
So instead of trying to banish those feelings, we allow ourselves to experience them fully, without judgment.
Right.
And see what we can learn from them.
Precisely.
Okay.
By bringing awareness to those emotions.
Right.
Without getting swept away by their intensity. We can begin to use them as opportunities for growth and self-discovery.
This has been incredibly illuminating.
Glad to hear it.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious to know more about what Tolle sees as the ultimate goal of all this inner work.
Okay.
We've touched upon presence, the ego, the power of now, and how this all relates to relationships.
Right.
But where does it all lead? What's the big picture?
Well, Tolle talks about a state beyond the roller coaster of happiness and unhappiness.
Okay.
He calls it peace.
Not just fleeting moments of happiness, but a deeper sense of peace that transcends our external circumstances.
You got it. He's talking about a profound inner peace that isn't contingent on external factors. It's a state of deep acceptance and stillness that arises from being fully present in the now.
Right.
And it's intimately connected to another concept you emphasize, the higher good.
Ah, yes. That idea that there's a greater force at work in our lives, even when things feel chaotic or painful.
Exactly.
Okay.
Tolle believes there's an intelligence operating in the universe that transcends our limited human understanding of good and bad. What we might perceive as a negative event might actually be a catalyst for growth and awakening. Leading us toward that higher good.
That's a powerful reframe.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the saying, sometimes you have to lose your way to find your path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that ties into another crucial concept in Tolle's work. The cyclical nature of life. He stresses the impermanence of all things, the ebb and flow of life's experiences. We experience cycles of success and failure, joy and sorrow, birth and death. And he argues that it's our resistance to these natural cycles that causes us the most suffering.
So instead of clinging to the highs or dreading the lows, it's about learning to ride the waves of life with more grace and acceptance.
You got it.
Okay.
And Tolle believes that for genuine peace to manifest in the world, there needs to be a collective shift in human consciousness.
A shift from ego-driven separation to interconnectedness and presence.
Right.
It's a tall order, but I can see how profoundly it could impact the world if we could each tap into that.
It really is. It's about recognizing that we are not isolated islands, but threads in the intricate tapestry of existence. We're all interconnected, part of the same universal consciousness.
It's a perspective-shifting concept.
It is.
As we near the end of our deep dive into the power of now.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most important thing for our listener to take away from Tolle's work?
You know, I think the most empowering message is that the potential for transformation exists within each of us right now. We don't need to wait for the perfect conditions or some distant future date. Just look at Tolle's own journey. He moved from the depths of despair to profound awakening by surrendering to the power of the present moment.
His story really underscores the transformative potential of embracing the now. And it seems like this shift in consciousness isn't just about personal transformation. Tolle suggests it's essential for the evolution of humanity as a whole.
Absolutely. The more we awaken to our true nature as being, the less we operate from a place of fear, ego, and separation. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness, which has the power to create a more compassionate, peaceful, and harmonious world.
It's a beautiful vision, for sure.
It is.
Is there a specific concept from the book that you think our listener could really benefit from incorporating into their own life? Something that can serve as a touchstone as they continue to explore these ideas?
You know, one concept that has stayed with me is the idea of conscious death. Tolle describes death not as an ending, but as a transition into a realm beyond form, what he calls the unmanifested. He suggests that by practicing presence in our daily lives, we can experience a sort of dying before we die.
That phrase, dying before you die, is both intriguing and a little daunting, to be honest. Can you elaborate on that?
Of course. It's about recognizing that we are not our thoughts, emotions, or physical bodies. Those are all temporary aspects of ourselves. Conscious death is the process of letting go of our attachment to those things, of releasing our grip on the egoic self.
So it's about shedding those layers of conditioning and identification that prevent us from experiencing our true nature.
Exactly. It's an ongoing process of awakening to the truth of who we are. Pure awareness. Pure being. And it's a journey that begins right here, right now, in the power of the present moment.
This has been a fascinating exploration. Really appreciate your insights today.
Happy to be here.
And to our listeners, keep diving deep, and we'll catch you next time.